Welcome to the OT Supervision podcast. Pull up a chair, grab a cuppa, and let's have a chat. So I'm Lynsay, OT Supervisor, and today I thought we would talk about types of supervision and styles of supervision. So within occupational therapy, it's really common practice that we have one-to-one supervision within our workplaces. And we experience this from early days in our career, from being a student right through our career opportunities. It tends to be the most commonplace method of delivering supervision. So most of you out there listening today will have engaged in one-to-one supervision. But I imagine that quite a few of you have also engaged in peer supervision. And obviously there's differences here. So when you have like what I would call more formal supervision, like one-to-one supervision, team supervision, group supervision, there tends to be a designated supervisor, someone who holds that responsibility, holds that space for everybody, and really ensures that we are creating a safe, psychologically safe space. Now, peer supervision is different. We don't tend to have one person who holds that space. And you might have experienced different ways of doing this. So I know certainly in some of the times I've had peer supervision across my career, there's been maybe 2, 3, probably up to 5 within a peer supervision group. I don't think I've experienced a bigger one than that. And actually what we agreed to do was all kind of take a rota on who was going to do the role of the supervisor that time. And then when it was their turn, they wanted something to share, someone else would then be designated to hold that space for them. But otherwise they would kind of take that lead. Because otherwise it can come a little bit kind of like lots of cross conversation. It's difficult to kind of manage it. You know, we run groups all the time as therapists, so we understand this. We need within that sort of group situation, there needs to be some kind of symmetry to it. There needs to be a flow to it. There needs some management of the dynamic. So having a kind of designated peer who's willing to take that role can work quite well. But obviously that needs to rotate because it's not fair that the same person would then hold that space for everybody all of the time. So that can be really valuable in peer supervision. And I don't know if that's your experience of peer supervision or if your experience has been more the case where it's a bit of a free-for-all. And everybody comes in, you kind of go, well, generally, if you're within a team, there might be a little kind of offloading session to start with where people are just like, this is kind of where things are at in general. And you might find some of the politics of your organisation kind of come in there. But then you move on to who's got something to talk about, what do we want to share, or you might have a theme if you're peer supervision within a team that you want to talk about, or if you're doing peer supervision where you have similar job roles but in different organisations, you equally might find themes helpful. But peer supervision is one where there is not generally one specific supervisor, but you may alternate who holds that role and holds that space for everybody. And I think that's really important, rather than the free-for-all. But again, I'd love to hear what your experiences and your thoughts of this are. On those more formal supervisions types, we have the one-to-one supervision. We have team supervision. So you might have supervision as a team. That could be an MDT team or a unitherapy team. And we might have group supervision. And the reason I separate out team and group is they're actually different things. So the team supervision tends to be within the same organisation, like I say, either all therapists or an MDT one, whereas a group supervision tends to be people coming from different organisations and working either the same profession or similar therapeutic areas. They come together to have supervision together, but they're not a recognised team. But each of those has a specific supervisor who holds that space and creates that space for you. And like I talked about in episode 2, it's really important that supervisory relationship, that somebody who can create that psychologically safe space so you've got the trust and you can communicate with them and share your vulnerabilities. But all of these types of supervision I have experienced throughout my 30-year career. And they've all had their place and value at different times in my career stage, depending on what it is that I've been working on, who I've been working with, and what type of supervision I felt I've needed at that time. So I just think it's really important to have some opportunity to think about those different types of supervision, what you might be currently receiving, what you think might be beneficial for you at this current stage in your practice. Because we can kind of fall into traps of just doing the same thing that we've always done. So if your service or organisation or OT business only offers one-to-one supervision, this is your opportunity to kind of think, oh, I wonder if either peer supervision or team supervision could be beneficial to me. And team supervision, all of these types of supervision, apart from the peer one, can be outsourced to an external supervisor. So I work with some small teams. I work with some small teams that are in the charity sector, and they are therapists, and they don't have a lead therapist within their organisation. So they've outsourced supervision to me, which is fantastic. I get to meet the same team of therapists. I understand their organisational context, and we build the skills for them as a team, which is different from group supervision, where people are all doing slightly different things but have overlapping themes. So I encourage you to look at what you're doing now, look at what might be possible for you to do in the future, and what the benefits of that are. And I think all have positives, and all will have some challenges as well, because let's face it, nothing is perfect and everything needs to be built and worked on. But encouraging you to think about it and not just sort of go, oh, well, this is what we do and that's it. There's no other opportunity. I'm sure with discussion, there is always opportunity to experiment and experience different styles, different types of supervision within your organisation, if that's something that suits your organisation itself. And then if we think about like reflective styles, so I've talked about types and styles a bit interchangeably there. Sorry, my brain does do that. But rather than the format, let's maybe call it that, Lynsay, it might be helpful. Let's think of the styles within supervision, and we'll all have experienced different supervision styles. So that relationship between you and the supervisor, the type of support you receive, the type of questions you receive. There's lots of different ways that we can engage in supervision. And I think what is really key and things that have helped me within the supervision sessions, whether that's one-to-one, peer, team or group, is the types of questions that I've been asked to ponder on. So as a supervisee, when my supervisor poses me a question that might encourage me to be more reflective, or it might be a curious question because maybe in my kind of brain dump when I'm talking about something, I haven't fully explained something. So the supervisor might come back with a more curious question to help me kind of unravel maybe some of the thinking I've still got to do. Or it might be a coaching style question in the sense of it's enabling some of that constructive questioning where we're encouraging, or we're encouraged as the supervisee to kind of be a little bit more maybe critical in terms of the actions we've taken or the reflection we have, or encouraging us to look at things from a different perspective. And I think some of those different styles and different types of questions can be really valuable. I don't know about you, but sometimes I definitely get stuck in my own head when I'm working on a case. And look, I'm an independent practitioner, so I don't have like a teammate to just sit and have a cuppa with and sort of like throw my ideas out. So my poor dog tends to get that. I'll come in and she'll be lying there quite happily wanting some attention, and I'm like, okay, I just need to say this out loud. And you're the only person here, Molly the dog, so you're the one that's getting these thoughts. But that's why I really need supervision, because that initial sort of thinking through, that initial reflection, whether I'm talking to my dog, whether I'm driving in my car and just thinking about it, having someone to reflect things back to me within the supervision space, I find really helpful. And there are lots of different ways we can do that. So being able to take themes into the supervision then helps my supervisor use different questions for me that are not just directed at one case. It might be something that's coming up that I might be noticing it's coming up for myself, but equally my supervisor might be the one that highlights that to me. So their ability to kind of use different styles, different approaches, different questions can be really valuable. And I certainly find that really valuable, and I'd love to know again what you think on that. Developing that ability to be self-reflective, to have critical thinking, critical analysis, is something that we carry throughout our career. So it's not just something we do in university while we're, looking through all of evidence and research. It's something we are doing all the time. We're doing it in our practice. We're doing it when we write our notes up. We're doing it when we're doing our planning. We're doing it when we're deciding what level of intervention someone requires or whether they need to be discharged. That sort of critical thinking, clinical decision making is an ongoing part of every day we do. And it's really important then within the supervision space that the different styles of questions, the different opportunity to discuss pulls out some of these factors. And I definitely find that really beneficial. So if I've got myself kind of stuck, I'll have explored everything. When I come into supervision, I then will say to my supervisor, I think I've gone through all of this in my head and I think I'm happy with the decision I've reached. But can I talk that through with you? Because maybe I'm missing something, because sometimes we can't see it because we're in the middle of it. And I'd really value you reflecting this back to me. Now, that's how I use supervision. I find it really useful to go in and explain the thinking that I've already done. But then I'm open to what might be reflected back to me. Because so there might be something that I've missed. There might be something within that I just haven't seen. There might be a different perspective on it, or there might be a piece of evidence that I have either forgotten about or I'm unaware of that could influence that decision. And I find using the supervision space really helpful to do that. And that can be done regardless of the type of so the format. So whether you're in one-to-one, whether you're in peer supervision, whether it's a team or a group supervision, being able to come in and say, this is my thinking so far. This is my reflection. This is my critical analysis. This is my decision making to this point. But what else might I need to consider can be really valuable in terms of your own personal growth and personal learning, but also in the quality of what we deliver for our clients. And I think it's really important that if we're doing supervision within a group setting, whether that's peer, team or group, I think it's really valuable to create space for people to do that. Because sometimes when we're having supervision with other people, we are conscious of the time that we might be talking and we kind of want to say our bit and then come away so the next person can kind of say what they want to say and get the support they need. But actually, I run group supervision for independent OTs, and some of the biggest value that people come away with is from that shared experience, from that discussion, that it might not be an issue that they've brought up or even experienced themselves yet, but the conversation that you have as a collective then influences their practice. And at the end of all of my group sessions, we finish with, what are you taking away from today? And I love it when people take away something different, something that wasn't necessarily on their radar in the beginning. So coming in with those thoughts, coming in with some of that pre-planning, pre-thinking, explaining your kind of process is really beneficial for you. It's really beneficial for others if you're in a group setting, but actually it really helps your supervisor see where they need to help you move towards. Because we're going to supervision because we don't have all the answers. And I've always said, if I ever get to the point in my career where I think I know it all, then it's time I'm retired, because that means I've stopped being curious. I've stopped learning. I'm always learning, as I'm sure are all of you out there. But we have to come prepared. We need to come thinking about, what am I bringing into the supervision space to enable then the group format or the supervisor to use different styles to support us and to challenge us, but challenge us in a supportive way, within a safe environment, within a way that enhances our learning and gives us the opportunity for growth. And ultimately, that's what we want the supervision space to create. So my takeaway for today is that all types of supervision are valuable, but all types will give you something different. I'd love to know what you've experienced. And if you've only experienced one type, then maybe this is the opportunity to take 5 minutes and think about what maybe other types of supervision would bring for you. So if you've only had one-to-one, what would peer bring for you? What would team bring for you? What could group supervision bring from you that's perhaps in an external setting? What different perspectives could you find for where you are in your career right now? And I'm not saying they will all be relevant right now, because I think we do different things at different points in our career, but it's being open to the fact there's different opportunities. And then another takeaway is why take another 5 minutes to reflect on what do I bring into the supervision space when I'm sharing my thoughts around a case or a theme, and what types of questions do I find helpful? So not necessarily what you always get, it might be, but if it isn't, what do you think you would find helpful to help you reflect on that differently, be a little bit more critical about it, look at it from a different perspective, and help you feel comfortable with the decisions that you've come to? So thinking about reflection, thinking about curious, thinking about coaching approach. What is helpful for you? What do you find beneficial? And maybe you can take that conversation back into your own supervision space and into your own team, into your own organisation, and see what's possible for your future supervision space. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Something just to ponder on, something to consider. As always, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love if you can share this podcast with other therapists that you think it might be valuable. And although it's an OT supervision podcast, maybe some of your allied healthcare professionals, colleagues would love to hear from it too, because they all engage in supervision. So please share. I would really like that. Send me any questions, send me any feedback. I'm always really happy to hear from you. But for now, and until next time, please take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you soon.